Hello and welcome to a crafty vlog. So today I've got a few things planned that I want to do. First of all, I'm going to have a go at crocheting my blanket. So this is the Weekender blanket by Sandra and isn't that gorgeous? I love these little hexagon patterns. They're really fun to crochet, and I'm in the process of crocheting up my advent from 2022, I think, from Giddy Yarns, and it was her Charlie and the Chocolate Factory themed advent. But I did have another mini set which was some of the lighter coloured ones, which was one of her yarn clubs for last year. It was called the Fantasy Book Club for April, and I think it at least consisted of some of these three. They're all sort of pale ones with little pops of colour, but I thought that they'd go nicely with the advent, so I've been crocheting them up together. So I had a fingering weight advent with 10 gram minis. So what I've been doing is actually I've been holding it double and using a 4mm crochet hook to make these hexagons, to make them a little bit thicker, and they're quite quick to crochet then. So I've nearly finished. I've literally got one row to finish off, which is down this edge, to finish crocheting the advent and the extra set of minis. But I'm just going to keep it quite a small little lap blanket for Jensen to have in the car, so I'm not going to make it too big, but I'm going to use the Christmas Day yarn that Helen dyed up, which has got these gorgeous speckles on, to do like a border on the outside. So I'm going to follow the border in the pattern, but first of all I need to finish this one row at the end, and I might square off just the sides, but I'm going to keep these peaks at either end because I like the effect that Sandra had in her original pattern, where there's little bubbles on as well. So I'm going to do that. So we've come to the local community centre. Adam and Jensen are playing with the toys on the floor. More track. And I'm doing my crochet. So I'm crocheting in the park. I've got to the point where I've done all the hexagons, but I've got some half hexagons to finish on the edge. Jensen! Are you tickling me? Are you tickling me? Oh, you're off. Are you ready? Are you steady? Go! Whee! So we are back from the park, and I've managed to fill in one side with half hexagons. So what I've been doing is that I've actually used a mixture of the ends of yarn for some of these. I did have enough of one of the minis to do two halves that I had left, which was probably, I think there was enough. It was obviously the same amount as doing one whole one, so I think it was about 3.5 grams for the two half hexagons. And then I've been using bits of leftover yarn from the rest of the blanket to make the rest of the half hexagons. So if you look at this one, you can see that there's some different colours in it. So what I've been doing is, because I want to use sort of similar colours, I've got these little bits of leftover yarn, and they're obviously doubled over, and the loops left at the end because I was taking from the centre and the outside of the ball at the same time, so I could crochet with them two fingering weight yarns together to make it a sort of DK weight. So I've got quite a long length of most of them. So instead of joining them with magic loop and using two of those yarns at the same time, what I've been using is actually one doubled over, and then where you've got the loop end, I'll actually thread through the second colour through that loop here, and then not having to magic loop those two together, just so that I have I've got two lengths of the same colour at a time, so that you can sort of see different bits of colour, but also it kind of means that I don't have to magic knot as much, but I think it equates to about the same as if I just magic knotted a load on two strands and then just held them double. It's about the same, but because I want the yarn management to be the same colour together, it makes it easier to loop it, if that makes sense. So it probably is about the same amount of magic knots, but because I want to keep the same yarn in the same area, it makes sense to do it like this. And then what I've been trying to do is do it so that I've staggered the two ends on here, and then I magic knot to this end and magic knot to that end, so when the magic knots don't sort of overlap in the same place when I come to get the next strand in. I've got a tutorial for how to do magic knot that I will link in the description bar down below, but I will try and video myself joining some together. What I've been trying to do is, rather than you doing some together that were completely two different colours, I've been trying to group together some of the yarns that look a similar colour, so that it sort of blends, like this one there. And I've also done this one as well, which has got blue and turquoises together. So that's one edge. It isn't completely straight, but I think when I come to do the edge crochet, that'll neaten it up a little bit. So I've got to do this other side, so it straightens that edge off, but I like the sort of zigzag edge on this side. I'm going to keep that zigzag and do the edging that Sandra suggests in the pattern. So the pattern for the hexagon is free, but if you want the layout, the sort of border, I think you can pay, and it's only a couple of pounds. So I've paid for the pattern. Also, I think that if somebody's gone to the trouble of doing a pattern as detailed as this, as Sandra's done, it's nice to give her a little bit back by purchasing the pattern, because it's only a couple of pounds, and it's just a little thank you to Sandra for giving us such fantastic instructions. So I'm going to get on with doing those last 4 little half hexagons for the edge, and hopefully get around this evening to actually doing the border section. Now this vlog is going to be slightly different to normal. I'm videoing this on Tuesday, and I'm going to video for some of tomorrow as well, where I'm going to be travelling to my parents' house. We're just going for a few days. So if you have ordered from my shop, I'm not shipping between Wednesday and Friday this week. It'll just go on Monday. So I do apologise for the delay, but I just like to have a couple of days off to go and visit my parents, because they do live quite a way away in Shrewsbury. So let's get on with these half hexagons. So this is my first colour with the loop on this end, and I'm going for sort of pinks in this section, but there is a little bit of blue in this first colour. I've got another colour here, and I'm going to thread the end through. You could of course just make a couple of magic knot balls and hold them double. But I just think it's easier, if I want my colours to be placed as they are, to do it in this method. So the two yarns are looped together there. There's 2 ends this end and 2 ends on this end. And like I said, I'm going to pull them on the end that's going to be joined to the next colour, so that one is longer than the other. And I'm going to do a magic knot with these 2 onto the next colour of yarn. So this one is a little bit shorter actually, so I'll place it over the top and then do a knot here. So I'm going to leave a link to the proper video tutorials, because I haven't got the camera set up at the right angle really for you to see properly. But it is really simple, and you can knot your yarn as follows, and then pull it together like so. And I do that with both ends. You can trim it, but what I have been doing actually is leaving it and trying to hold it double like that as I'm crocheting it, and then just trimming it at the end, so that there's less chance of it coming undone. But to be honest, if you've done your magic knot correctly, you should be able to trim it quite closely to the knot. And I'm going to do that the same with both of these ends. Obviously if you're just doing it in with a single strand of yarn, you won't be able to do the loop method, but you can do the magic knot. And it is so much fun to do a magic knot ball with all your leftovers and then crochet with it, because you're excited to see what colour comes next. But there we go, I've joined that one in, and then I can actually just loop the next colour in through that loop, because that one is obviously the looped end. And I'm just going to leave that hanging until I get closer to it, and I can crochet away until I get closer to it, and then join another one in if I need to. I probably will need to, because I haven't got that many joined in. But once I get to the point where I've nearly finished, I can then use whatever's left for the next half hexagon. Before I forget to mention, this is going to be the March colourway of the month, and it'll only be available to order at the end of February and March, and it is called Drop Dead Gorgeous. But I love these colours, blues and pinks. Hopefully you can see that, because there's probably just about enough daylight for you to see what the colour looks like properly. But I will put some pictures on Instagram and that, so you can see it properly, and I will show it on the next week's podcast as well. But I thought I'd give you a sneaky peek now. I will be releasing this colourway as well, because Mum wanted me to dye up a blue for a love note, and I'll be caking this up ready to knit her a jumper tomorrow, so showing later in the later in this video, so you'll see that. Mum's named this colourway. I've completely forgotten what the song is, because I'd never heard of it before she mentioned it. When we see her, I'll tell you what the colourway name is. I'm caking up the yarn for Mum's love note jumper, so that I can knit it on the way to Mum and Dad's tomorrow. It is like 9:30 at night now. We've been packing and sorting stuff out for the journey, so hopefully in the morning we can get out nice and early, and I can get lots of crochet and knitting done on the way. So hopefully I'll get a bit of crochet done tonight as well. Right. Just taking off the ties, and then I can start winding. So I've straightened the edges with the half hexagons at the edges. You can see that they're sort of a mixture of colours, because I've used scraps that are left over. But this one just here, I've actually used some of the full skein that I'm going to do a border around the outside with. But I did manage to do these 4 with either leftover or half of the little mini that was left over. Those 2 were sort of in one full colour, and the rest were made up with scrappy bits that were left over, so I've not wasted a tiny bit, which is brilliant. So I'm going to start doing the border now, so it'll be interesting to see what it'll look like when it's got a border on as well. I'm really excited about putting those bubbles on. So we're in the car ready to go to my mum and dad's. Say hello, Jensen. You gonna say hello? No? Okay. What are you doing? Anyway, I'm doing my crochet. I've got to the point where I'm on the second round to go round the edge, so I'm hoping that in a couple of hours I can perhaps finish the blanket, we'll see, and then switch over to my love note, but I'll keep you updated. Hey. So that's what it's looking like so far. Do you want to say hello? You're covering your face. Are you doing peepo? So I've managed to finish the blanket. You can see the really cute little bubbles on the edge. You can hear Jensen in the background. But I'm really pleased with how that looks. And it was a bit time consuming with all those bubbles, but I think it's worth it. You probably can't see it very well. But when I get to my parents' house, I'll lay it out on the table so that you can see it a little bit better. I think because it's not a solid yarn, because you can't really see exactly the pattern, but I still think it looks nice, so I'm pleased I've done that. I'm guessing that there's about 40 grams left maybe 30 or 40 grams left, because I've been taking it from the centre and the outside, holding it double. So we'll have to weigh that when we get to my parents and see. But I'm going to start the love note for Mum now. I've just realised I've got all the yarn and my whole entire needle set. Jensen wants to be in camera, he's pulling the camera. I've got my smaller needle set and this one and the yarn ready to knit Mum's love note, and I've now realised I need a 6mm needle and it's in the larger ones, and I left that at home, so I can't start knitting on my Mum's love note. I'm going to have to start it when I'm at home, and Mum's actually going to be knitting the body of it herself because it's plain knit. Jensen, you're very chatty today. Anyway, so I can't do that, which I'm gutted about, but luckily I've got some standby projects. So I'm knitting on some socks for Dad, and it's some yarn that I actually don't know what it is. Because my mum got it me from a charity shop and it feels like a commercial sock yarn, but I've got no idea what it is. So if you know what it is, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to see how I get on with this. I've just started the heel flap and gusset, so I will carry on knitting that and see how it goes. So here we are, we've arrived at Mum and Dad's, and I've popped the blanket on the conservatory floor so we can see it a bit better. What I'm going to do is that when we get home, I'm going to block it out and pull out these little bobbles a little bit more so that they're a bit more neat and tidy, but I think that it's worked out quite well in the end. It's not obviously the biggest blanket, but it's ideal for having in the car and popping on Jensen's car seat. So I'm really pleased with that. So this is the sock that I've been working on in the car, and I was asking whether you guys knew what this yarn was, because I think it's a commercial yarn, but I'm not 100% sure. It's caked up, and it was like this, caked up in the shop, so Mum bought it for a few pounds, and it's coming out really interesting. I do like how it's pooling, actually, it looks really cool. I'm halfway through the heel flap, I think, and I've got to obviously get to the foot decreases, finish those off before I pass it on to Mum, and she's going to knit the plain bit. Mum knitted the first bit of this sock, and we're sort of taking it in turns to knit socks for Dad, because Mum only really does the rib bit or the plain knit rather than the heel flap and gusset in it, etc. I'm going to do a little bit more knitting tonight when Jensen's gone to bed, and I shall show you how I'm getting on with some various things. Mum's been working on some socks which she's going to pass back to me, so I can show you those. Good morning. So now it's the next day. I did manage last night to finish knitting the heel flap and gusset on this pair of socks, where there's some really cool pooling. And Mum has got out her 3 pairs that she's been knitting the leg of, so I've got to put the heel flap and gusset on these 3, and then Mum can knit the foot bit and I can knit the toes, and we'll have another 3 pairs of socks. But I'm just using a simple top down sock pattern, which I've got as a free pattern on Ravelry on my website, which I always sort of knit my socks in. I'm knitting these for Dad, so they're slightly wider. I've done a 72 stitch sock for all of these because he likes a nice wide leg so that they're not too tight on his leg. So I've done those. I forgot to mention yesterday actually that I'd got 40 grams of the 100-gram ball left for the blanket that I was crocheting. So I do have enough to do something else with, but I wasn't playing yarn chicken, which is always good. So what I've also been doing is knitting some little swatches of my new colourway, Drop Dead Gorgeous. So this is the March colour of the month, and it'll only be available to pre-order from now until March the 10th. But I've done some little swatches, one in crochet and one knitted, so that you can see what it looks like knitted up and crocheted up. So the crochet hexagon is actually the same pattern as the weekender blanket, but I just did an extra row and I did it on a 2.75mm hook. And the little swatch I've done on 2.75mm needles, I just cast on 30 stitches, did a few rows of garter stitch, and then did a stocking stitch section with 3 stitches either side of a garter stitch bit. So that's the sort of standard pattern that I do for a swatch really, so I thought I'd follow that. I'm trying out some new wooden needles actually, and I am loving them, so I think I will be stocking those in the future. But there are a few different woods which is not quite nice. But there we go, that's what I've been working on. And I think now it's daylight you can see the colorway a lot better rather than showing it you when I was knitting them last night. So this bag is the one that I did for the Especially For You set. It's got Especially For You free motion on the back. I've just been using this to chuck in my rucksack actually, so it's a little bit creased, but ideal for a little sort of sock set. I may do some small bags like this in the future actually, because they're really handy to put little small projects into your bag. So don't forget that the new yarn clubs as well as the colour of the month colourways for March are now on sale on my website, and I'll leave a link to those in the description bar down below. But here's one last look at my weekender blanket. I'll get that blocked for next week as well so you can see it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye!